I'm so honored. Welcome, my new friends, to Crayons and Crime. This is just my little corner of the internet where I like to get together and yap and talk about different true crime cases, missing persons cases, etc. I'm just your average gal with a camera who maybe shouldn't have one, but I have one, so here we are. This is my first episode, and I would like to preface this by saying I am not an artist. I am also not perfect. So if you are here for either of those things, then you are sadly mistaken. But I might just be your cup of tea. So while I'm talking, I'm going to be keeping my hands busy by coloring a picture. Thank you, ADHD. And then at the end of the episode, I will show you my masterpiece. So grab your colored pencils or whatever, snack, whatever you want to do. And let's get colorful and creepy, shall we? Today we are going to be talking about Dennis Rader, aka the BTK serial killer. So Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9th, 1945. So he is a Pisces. Pretty off-brand for a Pisces to be this way, because I think normally they're known as being more of an emotional and empathetic sign, but maybe this guy's an exception. I don't know. He is the oldest of 4 children, so he had 3 younger brothers. As far as I could find, he had a pretty normal childhood, normal upbringing, nothing that really screamed, hey, I'm gonna be a serial killer someday. But here we are. So he was born in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and while he was born there, he was actually raised in Wichita, Kansas. More specifically, Park City, which is like a suburb of Wichita. It's like on the very northern end of Wichita. So this guy really creeps me out because he lived a complete double life. On one hand, he was a devoted, loving father and husband. He was a leader at his church. He was a Boy Scout troop leader. Like, you name all the great things that this guy could have been, he apparently was. But during the years of 1974 to 1991, he went on to brutally attack and murder 10 people. So, great guy right from the start, right? He was raised in Wichita, Kansas, graduated from Wichita Heights High School. Once he got out of high school, he started going to college, and then soon after dropped out and then enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. So he did his time in the Air Force, and then he got out, re-enrolled in college, and started doing creepy shit. He had found some hobbies, you know, not like good hobbies, more like bad hobbies. Not productive ones like crocheting, knitting, so on, so forth. No, unfortunately, his hobbies consisted of torturing and killing small animals. So, off to a great start. So, also for record, BTK is an acronym for how he would attack his victims. So, bind, torture, kill. Boo. His first attack took place 3 years after he married his wife on January 15th, 1974, and consisted of the 4 of the members of the Otero family. So the family consisted of the mother, Julie, the father, Joseph, and 5 of their children. This particular day was kind of out of the norm for them because normally at this time it would just be the mother, Julie, and their 2 youngest children, Joey or Joseph, the youngest Joseph, and Josephine, which is the daughter. They also called her Josie. So mom, Julie, dad, Joseph, 11-year-old Josephine or Josie, 9-year-old Joseph, which is Joey. So I'm going to call them by those. So he made what was called a hit kit, which honestly consists of a lot of the things you would expect a serial killer to carry with them at all times. He then cut the phone lines to their house and made entry through the back door, where he then held the family up at gunpoint He told them that he was a wanted man and just needed a car, some money, and food to basically GTFO. The family, for the most part, complied. He brought them into a separate room where he then tried to strangle the mother, Julie. Not a whole lot of success because she put up a fight. He then put plastic bags and like taped around like their necks. So he put plastic bags over the mother, the father, and little Joey's heads, where they then suffocated. During this time, he brought Josie down to the basement and hung her from a pipe. Before leaving the scene, he left a DNA sample on her body. I'm not going to say it out loud, but you know where I'm going with that. So initially, robbery was suspected because a radio and a watch was actually missing from the home. And not that robbery would make this any better, but unfortunately it was just somebody's sick psyche that did this. The family was later found by their remaining children, who then came home from school to that. So a few months later, on April 4th of that same year, he started working on his second project. Project, by the way, was his way of referring to his heinous crimes. Project. What a freaking weirdo. So anyways, this was targeting 21-year-old Catherine Bright. So Catherine, again, he kind of stalked her for a while, got to know her routine, and then decided to break into her home, where he hid in her bedroom until she did come home, because apparently she was out. Again, because, of course, this was also kind of out of the norm, because when Catherine did return home, she returned with her younger brother, Kevin. So Dennis, again, held him up at gunpoint, gave him the same kind of story, like, I'm a wanted man, I just need X, Y, and Z, and then I'll be out of here. Okay. Of course not. So he forces the couple, or not the couple, I'm sorry. Ooh, awkward. He forces Kevin and Catherine into a room where he then makes Kevin tie his sister's hands and feet. He then takes Kevin into a separate room where he shoots Kevin twice in the head and then returns to finish Catherine. He did try to strangle Catherine for some time without much success, so he ended up stabbing her multiple times in the abdomen. But there's a kicker to this one, because Kevin fucking survives. Kevin survives. Kevin, he survived being shot in the head twice. Not once, twice. And made a run for it. He ran to his car and went and got help for his sister. Unfortunately, Catherine did not survive her injuries. I'm like still just astounded. Like, he really got shot twice in the head and was like, you know what? I'm still gonna go get help for my sister. Holy batshit, Robin. Gosh. So afterwards, he took a little bit of a break. So for 3 years, he just kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus. But on March 17th, 1977, Dennis had planned to attack a woman that he had previously met at a bar and had been stalking for some time. Instead, he had to change his plans last minute because the intended victim wasn't home that day. So he took a little bit of a hiatus, and then 3 years later, on March 17th, 1977, Dennis had planned to attack a woman that he had previously met at a bar, but had to change his plans last minute because the woman just happened to not be home that day. I have heard in some places that he left a note at that woman's house that said, you're lucky you weren't home because or you're lucky you weren't here because I was. Oh my gosh, that would mess me up for literally ever. Like, this creep just being in your house, and then it's like you come home and it's like, hey, I was here. Ew. Anywho, so he spotted a young boy named Steve while he was just out being a creep. And he managed to pull Steve off to the side and pulled out a picture of his family and was like, hey, have you seen my family? And it was a real family, by the way. Like, he literally took this picture out of his wife and I think one of his children and was like, have you seen my family? And little Steve's like, no, I haven't seen your family. What the fuck? So then little Steve goes off. So he follows Steve home and kind of finds out where he lives. And he then enters the home of 26-year-old Shirley Van Relford. Once he got in, he turned off the TV, put all the blinds down. This kind of alarmed Shirley, as there were 3 other children in the house. And she was like, why is it all of a sudden dark and quiet? Like, something's not right. So it caught her attention. She comes out, and then Dennis held her at gunpoint, said, hey, I have a sexual issue. Locks the children in a bathroom and then takes Shirley to the bedroom next door. After this, he sexually assaulted Shirley and strangled her to death with a cord that was kind of just hanging out nearby. He also left a DNA sample at this crime scene on a nightgown that was laying next to her, as well as a cigarette butt. So apparently he had smoked a cigarette with Shirley, and basically I think this was just kind of an effort to calm her nerves, because honestly my nerves would be shot, right? So shortly after the attack, the phone rang, which then scared Dennis off. So at the time, he was also becoming a Boy Scout troop leader for, his son's Boy Scout troop. So they're going on different camping trips, like just doing all sorts of things with that. So he's a little bit busy. Unfortunately, he did rear his ugly head again on April 27th, 1985, when he was at a Boy Scout meeting and left early, claiming that he had a headache and he needed to go get some medicine for said headache. What a pansy, just deal with a headache. That's fine, whatever. So he leaves this meeting and goes to a local bowling alley. So he goes to this bowling alley and he orders a beer. So unlike normal people, I'm just going to sit here, drink a beer, whatever. He orders the beer and then proceeds to spill it all over himself and just acting like a sloppy drunk. Like he's distinctly trying to pretend like he's drunk. I think for a bit of an alibi, maybe. I don't know, I'm not sure. So he then calls a taxi to take him back to Park City, where he ends up breaking into the home of 53-year-old Marin Hedge. So Marin, at the time, was not home. So he just decides to break into her house and, like he had done previously, just sit there and chill like a total creep until she returned. So she did return, but at this time she had a male friend with her. So there's no bigger nightmare to a serial killer than a male friend coming home with a female that they're targeting, right? So he waits in Marin's closet until her friend leaves. And then at about 1 a.m, when he knew that she was asleep, he pops up out of her closet, and then he proceeds to attack her and strangled her to death. They had lived on the same block for 30 freaking years. He was her neighbor for 30 years, and 30 years. 30 years. Could you imagine living next to somebody for 30 years and then they just one day decide, you know what? I think I'm going to kill you. This guy's a psycho. So Once she's deceased, he brings her out to the trunk of her car and puts her in there, and then drives her car to his church. Takes her down into the basement, covers all the windows in black plastic so that nobody can see in. He takes Marin's body and poses her in different weird positions in different spots of the church, and then photographs her. So another thing he does is he photographs some of his victims and then puts them along with some of his other trophies in what he calls hidey holes. God. So he took those photos of her, stuffed them in there. He did end up taking her body and dumping her along the roadside in a ditch. Fast forward to the morning of September 16th of 1986, he decides to act on this project he'd been working on for quite some time. He referred to it as the PJ Project. And this victim was 28-year-old Vicky Wegerle. He had been stalking Vicky for quite some time and would often hang out outside of her house and listen to her play the piano. What the fuck? So Dennis presented to her house as the telephone repairman. So this being the 80s, that's not like super far-fetched for the telephone repairman to be like, hey, I just need to fix your phones. And then so she let him in, and he proceeded to cut her phone line and then forced her into a bedroom at gunpoint, where he strangled her with a rope. So she fought really hard for her life, like a freaking warrior. She fought hard, and she scratched the shit out of him with her fingernails, cutting him multiple times, leaving a lot of scratches on him. Once she lost consciousness, he posed her and photographed her in different various positions. And then when he was done, he drove off in her car. Their husband came home, found their 2-year-old son alone in the living room before then finding his wife in the bedroom. At that point, she was still alive, but just barely, and then passed away a few hours later at the hospital. His final murder took place on January 19th, 1991. This time he was actually on a camping trip with his son's Boy Scout troop, but he was able to sneak away from the group and went to the home of 62-year-old Dolores Davis. This is kind of a random side note, but I find it weird that they were camping in the middle of winter in Kansas on a Boy Scout trip. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I found it really weird. So for those who haven't been there, it's usually pretty snowy during this time, and it gets cold AF in Kansas. Anyways, it's a common occurrence, just a side note. So he watched Dolores from outside her home and waited until she fell asleep to break in. By breaking the glass on her door, he startled her awake. And once she came out of the room to investigate, like, what the fuck, like, what was that breaking glass sound? He then forced her back into the bedroom and tied her up, strangled her to death. After the murder, he took Dolores out to her car, put her body in the trunk, and then drove to West Lake in Harvey County. So Harvey County is the neighboring county, just barely north of Sedgwick County, which is where Wichita and Park City are. He left her under a bridge and then apparently returned to her body later on, posed her, photographed her, and put a really creepy mask on her for these photographs he was taking. They kind of remind me, or the mask itself kind of reminds me of the movie The Strangers. And if you haven't seen that movie, you should watch it, but that mask is like kind of what it makes me think of. I hate every bit of that, but if you know, you know. Dennis gets caught on February 25th of 2005 and is then apprehended. I think they had pulled him over while he was on one of his lunch breaks. So when the investigators pulled him over, they're like, do you know what you're being pulled over for? And he's like, or do you know what you're being arrested for? And he's like, I have a suspicion. Yeah, no shit, you killed 10 people, but okay. So he was then subsequently tried and is serving 10 consecutive life sentences because Kansas at the time did not have the death penalty in place. To this day, I still don't really think they have a death row, but it's not like they haven't executed anybody in a really, really long time. So fun fact. Is there really a fun fact when you're talking about this? Not really, but so I grew up in a small town about an hour and a half from Wichita. And at the time that they were starting to, I guess, like try to track him down and investigate him, he, like when they had him under surveillance, my grandmother was hospitalized, and the closest hospital to my hometown that was equipped to deal with her condition was in Wichita. So we were in Wichita. We stayed in Park City for about like a month and a half while she was in the hospital. And what's weird is like in our hotel, there were different FBI agents staying there, and we knew they were looking for BTK, but we didn't really know like what specifically they were looking for or who specifically they were looking for. We didn't really know what to expect there. So then fast forward to that next year, like I think right after he got caught, my mom was then hospitalized in Wichita for, she had to undergo a mastectomy because she had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And my dad and we had just checked into our hotel room. He was like, hey, Toe, come here, I want to show you something. And I was like, ooh, I want to see something cool. Well, I didn't know what this something cool was at the time. But tell me why this man points out the front window of our hotel and he goes, you see that building over there with like the little triangular shaped top? And I was like, yeah. He's like, that's where BTK is currently being held. And at the time I was like, what? That's crazy. But like, let's be honest, I lost a decent amount of sleep over that. Because I'm like, this guy is literally just right across the street. like this is actually insane. But anyways, he has since come out and spoken about everything. Nobody really gives a shit to listen to what he has to say. I know at least I sure don't. And I need to finish this picture because I, again, am getting distracted. And I can't finish anything. So he was interviewed by a forensic psychologist. And he honestly just started playing mind games with her, like sending her different like codes and like ways to decipher them. And then she's just like, dude, this is total freaking nonsense. But I mean, yeah, he's going to play games with you. So anywho, that is the story of BTK. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This is not the prettiest picture, but I colored you Danny DeVito. Oh my God, Danny DeVito, I love your work. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't mind my little menace to society crying outside my bedroom door. He is with his dad and uncle, and he's perfectly fine, I promise you. Have a good rest of your day. Be safe out there. And I just want to take a moment to mention that my heart is with the victims' families. And I'm thankful that they were able to get some form of justice, although honestly, I kind of wish they'd let them out of solitary confinement if we're being real here. And I will see you the next time. Bye.